Nobody sees the shadow coming. It creeps through the corners of the soul, hides in the jingle of spurs and the silence between two shots. In Tombstone, where the law is as thin as burnt paper, the shadow had a name, but no one dared speak it aloud. Only one man walked with his head held high and carried the weight of all the unspoken names, Wyatt Earp. If this kind of story keeps you glued to your seat, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and drop a comment telling us where you're watching from, because today the dust is gonna rise, and the legend will speak louder than a bullet. The sun fell like molten lead over Tombstone. It was a day for a funeral, the third that week, and they all had something in common: a clean shot to the chest, right where the heart still tries to beat. Folks whispered about a hooded gunslinger, a specter that appeared in the alleys when night closed its eyes. On the porch of the Oriental Saloon, Wyatt Earp watched the coffin pass. Boots planted in the wood, eyes hard as stone. He didn't cry, didn't pray. But that look, it was both prayer and threat in equal measure. The dead man of the day was Billy Cross. Good kid, quick on the draw, but dumb in the head. Wyatt had watched him grow, taught him to aim. What killed Billy wasn't speed, it was trust. He trusted the wrong town, the wrong time, the wrong man. They say it was the shadow again, the bartender muttered, wiping a glass already clean. Wyatt didn't answer. He just breathed deep, taking in the smell of gunpowder that still lingered on the streets. The shadow, that was the name the town whispered, as if naming a demon made it more real. But that wasn't what gnawed at the back of Wyatt's mind. The note in Billy's pocket, a dirty scrap of paper, stained with dried blood. On it, just one sentence, written in a steady hand: "Every judge has his executioner, and every town has its debt." Wyatt folded the note with the same calm as a man preparing for a duel, tucked it into his holster next to the revolver. Then he turned east, where shadows are born. A stranger had been spotted there, dressed in black, silent as death. Arrived at sunset and vanished before dawn, but he left tracks Wyatt had learned to read like pages of an old book. That afternoon, Tombstone fell into an eerie quiet, the kind of silence that comes before thunder. Wyatt knew it was time to ride, because when the shadow walks free, only one man can follow it. And he was already saddling up. The saddle creaked under the weight of his decision. Wyatt mounted without haste, like a man who knows there's no turning back once the hooves hit the road. The horse, black as moonless midnight, snorted low. It could smell the danger in the air. It was an animal used to carrying the weight of dirty justice and broken promises. Wyatt glanced back at Tombstone one last time. Shuttered windows, faces peeking through cracks. People who once shouted his name now just prayed he'd leave and take the death that followed him like a shadow. But he wasn't leaving. He was going deeper. The goal was clear as the sight on his Colt. Find the man behind the shadow. Not for revenge. Wyatt had learned to bury feelings alongside friends. What drove him now was balance. Justice, maybe, but a justice without courts, without shackles, just steel and dust. He rode east, guided by rumors and crooked tracks. The trail led to the old Silver Gulch mine, abandoned for 5 winters. They said the new master of the night hid there, a man no one saw face to face, but he left messages in bullets and shadows. On the way, Wyatt met old Tomas, a loose-tongued hermit with worn-out eyes. He lived alone in a crumbling ranch, but heard more than a crow in a dead tree. "You after him?" he asked, spitting on the dry ground. Wyatt just nodded with a tilt of his chin. "I seen him. From a distance. Don't walk. He floats, and when he speaks, the night goes mute." Wyatt said nothing, but his fingers brushed the handle of his gun, like checking if his soul was still in place. "You going alone?" Tomas asked. "Like always," Wyatt replied, and he rode on. The trail grew darker as it neared the mine. The wind stopped blowing. Even the crickets fell silent. It was as if the world itself held its breath. And at the end of the path, there it was, the mouth of the stone grave, black as an abyss. The horse balked. Wyatt dismounted, tied the reins and walked on foot. The leather of his boots creaked against the dry ground. Hand on the revolver. Eyes, sharp. Every shadow could be an ambush, every rock a disguised tomb. And then, right at the mine's entrance, he found another message, nailed to a rotting plank with a dagger. You see the shadow, but the shadow saw you first. Wyatt gave. A half smile, not fear, respect. The hunt had begun. The cave swallowed light like it was starving. Inside, the darkness was so thick even thoughts echoed. Wyatt moved slowly, one step at a time, like a man dancing with death. The air was damp, reeking of sulfur and old secrets. The drip of water from the ceiling was the only sign of life, or a memory of it. The voice came without warning. Low, dry, familiar like a bad dream. You finally came. Wyatt Earp. He stopped. Hand steady on the gun's handle, the shadow took form. Not a spectre, not a beast. A man, but something was wrong. The figure wore a black duster, edges crusted with dried mud and old blood. Hat pulled low, beard thick, eyes hidden in the dark. The stranger seemed more statue than living. Only moved when the wind dared. Billy, Cross, Tom Jenkins, Amos White, everything you trained, fell. They died with their chests bared. You hide in the back of the night. I am the night, Wyatt. I'm what you let grow when you hung up your badge and pretended to be an ordinary man. The silence cut deeper than a knife. The enemy's voice was heavy, laced with old venom and cursed truth. Wyatt knew who he was, not the name, but the origin. The shadow was an echo of the past. An old partner, maybe, someone who crossed the line between law and madness, and didn't. Come back. You want justice, or you want me to carry your name to legend? I want what I always wanted, balance. The shot came without warning, but Wyatt was already moving when the sound was born. He rolled to the side, fired twice, but only hit silence. The shadow was gone. Behind him, another shot. His shoulder burned. Blood ran hot, but Wyatt didn't fall. He used the pain as an anchor, saw a figure darting through the tunnel like rifle smoke. He gave chase. The obstacle now wasn't just the shadow, it was the place. The mine was a maze, made of tunnels, and traps, echoes, and darkness. Every turn was an ambush, every wall a graveyard of possibilities. The shadow spoke as it moved. You taught me everything, Wyatt, but forgot to teach me how to stop. And then, out of nowhere, silence again, but this time with the weight of an ending. Wyatt stopped. The mine opened into a vast chamber, held up by cracked pillars and abandoned crosses. In the center, a chair, and on it, another body. It was Virgil. The brother Wyatt thought was far away or alive, now with open eyes and no soul. In his fingers, a silver coin, and another message, carved into the chair's wood with a knife. Even justice bleeds when it takes too long. The shadow wasn't just a man, it was the past's overdue bill. Wyatt stood still for a moment, eyes locked on his brother's body, chest hard as stone. It wasn't sadness, it wasn't rage. It was the end of something he didn't even know he still carried. Virgil deserved better, deserved to die old, spinning yarns on a porch smelling of coffee. But there he was, cold, silent, paying for sins that might not even be his. Wyatt approached slowly, took the coin from his brother's fingers and pocketed it, like reclaiming a piece of himself. Then he turned. The shadow waited in the chamber's darkness, leaning against a beam. Face still hidden by the hat, but the voice came clear now. No echo, no games. It's not about right or wrong anymore, Wyatt. It never was. It's about what's left after the fire. What's left is dust and memory and blood. The sound of a holster snapping open was louder than words. 2 men, 2 fates, 1 bullet for each. Wyatt moved first. 3 steps, shot, sparked. The Shadow dodged like a snake, fired back. The bullet chipped stone inches from Wyatt's head. They moved like dancers. Fast, precise. Each shot was a closed chapter of the old Western tale, justice against judgment, lore against legend. Wyatt felt another sting, this time in his side. Blood soaked his shirt, but he didn't back down. He dove behind a pillar, breathing deep. The sound of his own heartbeat drowned out everything. The shadow circled, hunting. But Wyatt wasn't prey, never was. In a flash, he spun from behind the beam and fired on the move. The first shot grazed the enemy's shoulder. The second pierced the forearm. The third hit true. The man fell to his knees. The hat fell too, revealing the face, and what Wyatt saw stopped time. Morgan. It was his other brother, presumed dead long ago, but there he was, alive or something close to it. Empty eyes, mouth scarred by years of silence, blood flowing like a confession. They left me to die, Wyatt. You forgot me. I buried you. No, you left me in the dark, and in the dark, I became the shadow. Morgan's hand still clutched the revolver, trembling, but alive. Wyatt stepped closer, took the gun from his brother's hand with the same care as lifting a cross from a grave. You've bled enough, Morgan. His brother slumped to the side, breathing faintly. Outside, light began to seep through the mine's cracks. The shadow was defeated. But the night, that never truly left. The sun was brushing the mine's edges when Wyatt emerged, carrying his brother in his arms. Morgan was unconscious, but alive. Dust clung to sweat, blood dried like old ink on their skin. The world outside seemed lighter, but no less cruel. Tombstone woke in silence. Not even the roosters dared to crow. Wyatt crossed the main street like a ghost returning from war. Every step watched by half-open windows, by eyes unsure if they feared or revered the man of legends and losses. At the door of old Doc Samuel's clinic, Wyatt stopped. Knocked once, then twice more. The door opened without a word. The doctor just looked, nodded, and stepped aside. Morgan would be cared for. For the next few days, maybe weeks, the town would breathe again. But everyone knew that peace was borrowed because the shadow might retreat, but it never truly vanishes. The next morning, Wyatt stood in the same spot where he'd watched Billy's coffin pass. Now only the wind passed, and with it the dust carried away names, screams, sins. A boy approached, hat too big for his head, eyes full of wonder. Is it true what they say, Mr. Earp, that you faced your own shadow? Wyatt looked to the horizon. The sky was clear, for the first time in weeks. The shadow's part of every man, kid. The difference is who faces it and who runs. The boy nodded, not fully understanding, but feeling the weight of the words. Wyatt mounted up, looked at Tombstone one last time. It wasn't a goodbye, it was a new beginning, because the legend never ends, it just changes trails. And as long as there's sun, dust, and revolvers, Wyatt Earp will still ride between myth and justice. If you made it this far, it's because the Old West lives in your heart. Love the legend? Then hit that like, subscribe to the channel, and comment below. Which legendary name do you want to see next? The West has plenty of stories, and each one starts with a trigger till the next ride.